producer.
Yeah, right.
Well, hey, we're pretty curious here about what you've noticed since last week when it comes to self-love, which was our topic last week: self-love, self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, self-compassion. And as you know, when we ask these questions, they're not just rhetorical. I mean, we really are interested in what you think.
And we would also, even if you weren't here last week, that doesn't matter. Because, take that question in and think about the last week and what your relationship was like with yourself over the last week.
Yeah. So who'd like to start us off with that? What have you noticed about self-love, present, not present, in yourself, in others, whatever, this past week?
For me, self-love is learning to take breaks when I'm tired and
good.
Getting drinks of water so that I don't get headaches from the heat.
Yeah, good for you. Excellent. Hi, Lenora. Welcome.
Yay, Lenora.
We were just checking in, and you were here last week, about what people have noticed as far as practicing self-love. What we talked about. Any what else? I'm sure there are things.
One thing that I have been trying to practice, which I guess could be self-love, is that I'm trying to be more okay with just feeling okay with whatever I am in the mood for, in terms of, if I don't feel like doing the things I feel like I should be doing at this time, not beating myself up for that and feeling that guilt, and just being okay with, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it and be okay with it.
Oh, that's beautiful, Jay. That absolutely falls under the category of self-love, is how you honor yourself without guilt, without good, kind of thing that you have to get beyond. So excellent. Bravo.
Boy, a lot of us don't realize that guilt is optional. And so for us to be choosing, hey, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to torture myself. I'm not going to punish myself. I'm not going to make myself feel guilty about the choices I make. That is definitely self-love.
Mm-hmm.
You bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
Go ahead, Kate.
No, go ahead.
I've been working on letting go of the concern that we don't know when the end will come with this, and saying, okay, one day at a time, and take that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done more reading in the last 5 weeks than I have in my lifetime.
Yeah, that's excellent. And that really is another form of self-love, just by how you think. What are we thinking about? Are we thinking about something that makes us, that disturbs us, or not? Are we letting that go, and that makes room for us to think about something that does honor us or does make us feel good? So, excellent. Yeah, these are great examples.
A therapist friend of mine, I remember a lot about him. And, he was really a very insightful person. And one of the things he became famous for, in my mind anyway, is his phrase, we always do what we'd rather do than not do. We always do what we'd rather do than not do. Which it took me a long time to wrap my head around that, but part of why I remember that is that it's a permission to not beat up on myself. That what I do is what I'm in this moment deciding I would rather do than not do something else. And so doing what I would rather do is a rather self-loving thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, what you are mentioning earlier about guilt being optional. If we can move beyond guilt when we're making any kind of choice for ourselves, boy, that gives us a lot of freedom and makes room for joy. So.
By the way, I found my coffee cup. Can
Oh,
you read
good.
this or the words backwards?
Do more of what makes you happy. Yes.
More of what makes you happy. We talked about that last week, and I just love that. And I love it that it's so colorful too.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good one.
Great. Well, Cindy, this week, Kate and I would like to share a strategy. It's rather a simple strategy. It's lovely, which we really love it when things are simple and yet very, very powerful. And it's a concept about how to help ourselves stay feeling good and acting powerfully and effectively
Mhm.
and leadershiply.
Leaderly. Yeah.
Leaderly. So
Yeah. So the name of it is The Power of Perspective, the art of reframing how we experience life. And, the beauty of that is we are not stuck in one lane for how we experience life. Doesn't matter what's going on around us. We are in charge for the perspective we hold or how we frame it. And that's what we want to emphasize, the power that we all have with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you've known us very long, you know that we have kind of a belief or a passion. We think thinking holds magic. Thinking holds power. And what we think about makes a big difference. In fact, it determines what we feel. It determines the choices we make. And it also determines the impact we have on others. It all begins with what we think, because our body, our minds, our feelings follow our thinking. So if we get in charge with our thinking, we can manage huge portions of our lives.
Mhm.
So this concept of reframing, if you can imagine looking out a window. Say you're looking out a window in your house. Your window has a frame around it, okay? And you're looking out at the world, and you're seeing the real world, okay? However, you're only seeing part of it. You're seeing the part that gets framed by this window frame that we have. And sometimes we think that that's the whole world. That's all that there is. And so this concept of reframing is like taking myself and shifting myself to look out another window. And when I look out another window, I still see the same world, but I see it in a different way. I see something different that I didn't see when I looked out my first window. And so this concept of reframing is about how do we take what we're looking at or thinking about and gain a new perspective on it simply by shifting our point of view or shifting which window we're looking out at the world.
Mhm.
Does that make some sense? A little bit, that illustration about what we're talking about here?
We love metaphors, and this is one that we especially like. So just do this if it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do is focus on our thinking, and we're going to think about this concept throughout the call today. What window am I looking out of when I am examining my thinking? Okay. And here's a little graphic that may help us a little bit begin this process of looking at reframing. Here are some reframes that somebody did about how to look at COVID-19. And when you look out one window, like take one of these, like let's take the second one, for example. If we're looking out one window, we're seeing, we have to quarantine so that we don't get the disease.
Mm-hmm. Which is a fearful base.
Right. That's one window. However, we could choose to look at it differently. If we look out a different world, we can still see that real world of COVID-19, but we can interpret it. We see something different because we've taken a different perspective. So in this case, this particular person has changed quarantine out of fear for self-protection to quarantine out of concern for collective well-being.
Yeah, and notice it says quarantine.
Quarantine, yes,
Yeah,
very good.
That we humans are a team of humanity. You know, all we're doing this to help one another. So that is a whole different feel.
Yeah, so just notice, see if you can tell any difference between how it feels between those two concepts. To quarantine out of fear that I'm going to get sick versus I'm going to quarantine out of concern for a collective well-being.
Yeah. Do you know what the difference is? It's just coming to me now with that particular example is the second one comes from a place of choice, which is always going to feel better than feel as if we are being commanded to do something.
Mm.
We like our freedom. And when we have I am choosing to do this, that feels better, you know, particularly when there's a good reason that's driving it to want to do it.
Yeah, I wonder if we also can choose the first one, though, too. It's like we can choose to look out the window
sure.
of fear, right?
Yeah.
Or we can choose to look out the window of collective well-being.
Right.
Either one can be a choice. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the really good news, is that we have a choice no matter what.
Yeah, always. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another one I like on here is isolation and loneliness. Oh, I've got to be by myself. I can't see my friends.
Shirley's nodding.
Yes. Ouch.
You could put
ouch,
Shirley's
ouch.
name on this one. Yeah.
Yes. And instead, I could look out the window, seeing the same world, but in a different way. Oh, yeah, maybe the staying at home stuff, staying by myself, maybe it's a time of solitude and reflection and personal growth and introspection. And how does that feel different from the first point of view? Just notice that. Does anybody feel different standing here than standing over here?
Yes, Shirley, I'd love to hear from you if you don't mind sharing. You need to unmic. You need to unmute.
Okay. The loneliness, Luella, you have to be quiet. My little dog wanted to say hello. The loneliness is hard because I feel as though, I don't know, sometimes it just really weighs me down and when I'm thinking I'm alone. And it is a lot of my thinking, because then if I can divert myself to doing something, it might, coming on, joining in on these meetings is wonderful because I don't feel alone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I have neighbors close by that, we say hi to each other from our yards and stuff. But other than that, I've been totally alone.
Yeah.
And I think that the worst part of it is in the evening, when I'm alone. So I put like TV on, or I put Christian music on, and that really helps me. But I am tending to go to bed a lot later and get up a lot later.
Yeah. So
and
I'm
I don't
curious.
know why. I feel like it's because I'm alone, and if I can just sleep away a lot of my time, I won't feel that loneliness.
Yeah, I get it.
Because I was always in the public, and that's the thing. I was in 25 years of retail, so I was always with people in my stores, and then I'll, and then going from retiring from that right into the Corning Chamber, which of course I was in the information center around people all the time, and then to just totally nothing. It's yeah,
it's quite a so I'm curious. You totally relate to looking out the window of isolation and loneliness.
Yes.
What other window can you look out in this situation that you're in? You live alone. and perhaps see something different.
Well, I look out the window of faith. That's what really gets me through it.
Okay.
And like I said, I don't pray a lot, but I do listen to the Christian music a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Bible group on Zoom. So I just I just go with faith. And that's what, like I said, that's what gets me through. But also I know that, you know, we will get back to a place that, you know, we'll be around people again too. And so that really helps.
Okay, that's
Definitely.
optimism.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Okay, so faith and optimism.
Yes.
So notice how just those, and that's just one window here we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just notice how that feels. You know, when you're focusing on looking out there, this window for faith and optimism, how that feels versus looking out the window of, oh, I'm so isolated, I'm so lonely.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I work on that all the time, and you got to. You really do.
Yeah.
And even if you're not, you know, if you have a partner or you have children, you still, I've heard from other people that even though they got a full household, they feel alone sometimes. And so you just have to, I feel as though you just have to, you know, have the faith and always try to go to the positive.
Yeah, okay, so that helps you. And
Definitely.
Excellent.
Definitely. That's what helps.
Yeah.
Shirley, you're reminding me of an experience I had with one of my psychology teachers back many years ago, who was telling us in class, sharing the perspective that, you know, one of the most difficult things about being a human being is ultimately realizing we are totally alone. And I took issue with him about that because from my perspective, I said, you know what, for me, the reality is remembering that I am never alone.
Mm-hmm.
God is always with me.
Definitely.
And that's reframing. That's looking through a different window. He was looking at the same world I was looking at, but I was seeing something different. And so that's kind of what you're talking about, I think, a little bit too, Shirley, that your faith helps you deal with being alone and interpret it more positively than negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how powerful that is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
I appreciate the window of solidarity and solitude, but maybe we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm suffering from, what's it called? Skin hunger.
Oh, to hug.
And to hug my grandkids.
Yeah.
And, or anyone else for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got to refocus that.
Yes.
Yes. So let's do that. How, Phil, could you reflip? How could you refocus that? Or we could all chip in here because everybody's got ideas. How could Flip refocus on that? He's seeing a world of skin deprivation, connection deprivation, right? Physical contact deprivation. That's a window. Right? So what's another window that Flip could look through that might shift how he feels about that? And remember, when we're talking about looking through a different window, it's not about going into denial. It's not about saying this doesn't exist.
It's just also true.
We're just looking at a different side of the vase, right? Is all we're doing. We're acknowledging what's true, but we're looking at it differently. So how could Flip reframe that? Like instead of being sorrowful or agonized about
Sad.
not having connection with people? How could he see that differently? Anybody have an idea?
I have one. Nobody
Go
else
ahead,
does.
Kate.
Well, it's just reminding me of a situation that we're in right now in our business. That
Yeah.
we are, we're grateful to have Zoom and seeing people here. Yet we really love touching people, really hugging people, being in the moment with people. That is a huge piece for us. And so something that I've done related to that to help myself feel better is, oh boy, when we get back, it's going to be so good. Like those connections are going to be even more glorious than they ever were before, more than I could ever have imagined. It takes me to that because that time will come. I don't know when, but that time will come. And so looking through that window of looking forward to something rather than being sad about looking out this window of being sad about what is currently the situation, really got me excited when I saw it that way. So I don't know if that relates totally to you with your story, Flip, but.
Well, Kate, I'm wondering if you've thought of ways then in which that'll happen, because they are suggesting, at least in the future, we're not going to be shaking hands. I mean, not even the typical, very,
basic, yeah.
Basic.
Yeah. Well, my imagination goes way beyond that. In my imagination, I don't know when that will be, and I foresee that we will again. We're not going to be isolated, living in bubbles, and so like that's I could look out through another window that I could believe that I'll never touch another human.
Right.
I could do that, but that doesn't feel good, and I don't know.
Even think it'd be a window. I think it'd be blackened out.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Kate,
Yeah.
I think like with visualization, that you can visualize. Maybe this would help him because this is what I do too. I visualize it, and when you visualize it, you have that concentration and you can feel it.
Yes.
You can actually feel it, because I come from a family we're full Italian, so you hug, you kiss, the everything. And I hug and kiss everybody, even when they come in the information center. But
I think I got a hug the first time I met you, Shirley.
But I think that what helps me is that concentrating on visualization, that I'm touching somebody, I'm hugging somebody, somebody's hugging me.
Yes.
That's what helps me.
Yeah,
so maybe Bill can help me.
Well, one thing that reminds me of Shirley is coming from Norwegian background. At least I didn't depend as much as an Italian on kissing and all of that. Quite stayed.
Yeah.
You might have some Italian in you, Flip.
Yeah. You're an outlier, Norwegian. Yeah.
Hey, I'm just fascinated, Kate, by your response, because you were looking forward toward how great it's going to be.
Oh yeah.
When we get through this. And I actually went the other direction. I was looking backwards to how grateful I am for what we've had.
Yeah. That's another window.
That we've had those times where we could hug and kissy face and whatever, really enjoy touching each other and expressing love physically, and we temporarily, I like to see it as temporarily, at least that's one window I can look at, we temporarily don't have that, but boy, I'm really grateful for something that I took for granted before. Now I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
And so that's another window that I choose to look out around that issue.
Yeah. Gratitude. We talked about gratitude in one of our early calls, and that is a great a great tool for how do I feel good now. And so being grateful for what is, being grateful for what has been. And is you feel good when you, and it coincides with what Shirley was talking about with the visualizing too, because that's all in our minds. And so we can use our minds to create pictures that make us feel bad. We can make up stories that make us feel bad. Mm-hmm. Or we can use our minds and our thinking to create pictures and stories, window framed, views that feel good.
I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I kind of shifted the window or the frame a lot from that because, like Shirley, I live by myself. It's been really hard to not be able to hug or see people in real life. And so instead of, yes, I remember the times when we could, and I'm grateful for that. And I definitely look forward to when we can again. So that is part of it. But the other part is how can I connect with these people who I'm missing in innovative or different ways? And honestly, my family, we are very intentional about making space to talk. Like one thing we did we text, but we shifted from that. Like when I want to connect, texting doesn't quite do it. So video conferences or calls are something that we're doing, and we're connecting in one-on-one ways or in group ways a lot more often than we usually would together.
So, I love that. And the creativity that comes up with creating that. I was just talking, I have to look into this. I was talking to a friend this week, and she was saying the same thing, that the connections with her family has been even richer because they've had to be more resourceful. And she said there's games that they can play online that everybody is playing together. And I don't quite what that is. She said, we have regular games going on. That she said, we've
done that. And then they're like app-based games, which are just silly and fun. We do that. And then we're old school. We all have Wii video games, and my mother loves this one. Like, I hate it kind of, but I'll play it for her. But it's like this puzzle game. And we play that, not together, but we'll play it and then we'll share what we found. So they're creative ways that we can connect. And I still can't hug them, but I do feel a little bit better looking through that window.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love it. There's really no end to the possibilities when it comes to our minds. Oh, I'm getting a feedback there. Is anybody else hearing that?
A little bit. I don't know if Paula was attempting to chime in or.
Oh, okay. Paula, we don't see you anymore, but.
Hey, I really want to make this comment to make sure that we are not suggesting that we never get sad.
No.
We're suggesting that we have choices. Okay, so I might say, let's say there's a loved one that's passed or something like that, some discouraging event, and I can look out the window of sadness about that, and that's a choice that I have. It's not that it's bad to look out the window of sadness. What we're suggesting is that there's a choice, so that when I get done with my sadness or when I want to change, the reality is there is another window available to me to go beyond that sadness. And so I might decide, hey, I want to look out this window of sadness for a while. It just feels like it's the right thing to do. It's part of my grieving. It's me being real. And so I want to look out this window of sadness and just experience that for a little while.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to that, that you can look out a window of sadness and feel totally devastated by it. You can look out another window and it can still be sadness and be in total peace about it.
Right.
And so
very good point.
Yeah, so it is, we always have that choice of where we want to be. There is no should, and we're in charge of that. You know, like, boy, does this, you know, if we're feeling constantly frustrated and in constant fear and we're noticing like, gosh, I feel awful. I don't want to eat, or I'm eating all the time, or I can't sleep, or gosh, is this serving me? No, it's not. It's not healthy for me. And there, so then, you know, there's an indication I don't feel good. So, you know, what else can I do? Where can I look to help me through that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. Any other comments that are bouncing around in your head about this at the moment?
But do we have time for a game?
Oh, game. The game girl.
My nickname's Game Girl.
Kate is always ready to come up with a game.
Yeah, I hate for us not to do it since I had that brilliant idea when we were creating this outline.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. I think we're going to play the game whether
Okay.
we want to or not.
We don't have to take a lot of time. I mean, we're already kind of playing it.
And why wouldn't we want to play the game?
I know.
For heaven's sakes.
That's right. All right. So first of all,
Yeah.
we're going to just kind of brainstorm some of the potential issues or challenges in life. And it can be related to COVID or not. It really doesn't matter. And just come up with what are some common things that can be challenging, pull us into the land of fear kind of things.
Or things that we might find, gosh, I'm looking out a window here and I don't really like it. You know, that kind of challenge.
Yeah.
Changes in financial.
Okay, so financial concerns. Great. What else? Flip or somebody was saying earlier about we don't know how long this is going to last. Right? So how long is this?
Right. It appears there is not light at the end of a tunnel.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But the tunnel maybe just turned. So you just don't see the light.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to part 2 of the game. All right, so no. Okay. You're so advanced. Okay, great. What else?
Missed celebrations.
Oh, yeah. Celebrations. Okay. Good. What else?
I think for me, it's hard to know if I'll get like a good enough break because it's what I do 40 plus hours a week at my job.
Oh, okay. So, when will there be a break? Okay. Yeah. Good one. Okay. So let's pick one to play with. Let's look at the financial concerns. Can we do that one? I wanted to find something that might be appropriate for everybody so that we can all relate to that. All right, so when if we're looking out the window frame and the question is financial concerns, let's look at what's one perspective when we look at that?
Well, one perspective of financial life, if life is the world, financial life is the world out there. One perspective I can have on it is my financial security is deteriorating.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That could be one window.
Yeah.
Another window is, do I have food to feed my family tomorrow? Far too many.
Yes,
Yes.
there's a lot of people in that boat that the fear of being able to feed their kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look at past windows where finances have been difficult. As you're aware, Kate had a bad accident that, didn't allow me to make money for a whole entire year. And that was a pretty scary thing initially.
Yeah.
But I've always made it through.
Mhm.
And that's the window I try to frame.
Yeah. So if we look at that window and how you felt at the time, that fear of how am I going to survive?
Yeah.
How like we're not seeing how that could possibly be. Any of the scenarios that we're discussing, just think about how that feels. It's pretty demoralizing and very scary and not very empowering, is it? So now with that same topic of financial concerns, let's look in another direction, look out another window, and what are some things. Now, Paula, let's just start with the one you just shared, because that was a great one.
Yeah.
I've handled this before.
Yeah, I actually felt the shift, Paula, when you said that. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm turning to look out another window.
Yeah.
Oh, what I see is I handled financial crises before and
You
have
lived
done it
through it.
successfully.
Yeah.
Well, that made the world look different
Also-
right away.
Yeah. Unsuspecting or almost miracle type ways that come about to help you handle those things
Yeah.
that you can't even think of.
Right, exactly. You couldn't imagine. I can remember when you were going through that. You could not imagine what happened after. To help you through that time. And so you're looking through the window of past experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another window is I believe in miracles. Or faith. I have trust. I have total trust and faith that I'm going to be okay. That I'm going to get the food for my family for tomorrow or whatever. Notice how that would feel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any others? I have one. It is what I know about myself is I always land on my feet. It's kind of similar to what Paul was saying based on past experience. Like, oh, I can do this. I don't know what, how, or what, but I know I'm going to land on my feet. I trust that I'll be able to deal with whatever shows up.
I know my context might be a little different than someone who doesn't have any food in their home, but I've been playing Chopped Kitchen in my house for dinner. So what can I make of it?
Yeah.
So just being creative with what is available. Like I don't really want to eat beans all the time, but I have them. So
yeah,
kind of like how do you make it work?
Yes. Yeah. Great being resourceful and creative. Yeah.
And these days, when it comes to employment, there are new opportunities where businesses are going wild, needing help.
Right.
It might be something you've never done before, but you might be very good at it.
Right. Yeah. What haven't I thought of for what I could do?
Yeah.
I can think of people who work at Trader Joe's simply because they have to do every job available there. They're trained in everything. What creativity!
Yeah.
You might actually learn that they like something.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. In my mind, I'm kind of labeling these windows that we're talking about. Like, okay, I've got the window of dread, or the window of trust, or the window of creativity,
Mhm.
right? I can look at the same situation through different windows
Mhm.
and see something different.
Mhm.
This is fun. I like this game, Kate.
Yeah, good. Good. See, this is what goes on in my head all the time.
You forgot the miracle window.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
right. The miracle window.
Right.
Yeah, I believe in miracles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and really, when, it's just hitting me now that when I had got the news of my breast cancer, this is where I went. I did not look through the window of fear of death or, what all was to come that I didn't know. That I knew that wouldn't serve me. It didn't feel good. So I went to oh, well, you just watch it, cancer, because I'm stepping up. This is an opportunity for me to really grow here. I'm taking this challenge on. It was really, I know it's weird, but it was really uplifting for me to look out that window.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't weird. That was amazing. When you told me about that, I thought this woman is amazing to have that perspective and that oomph to conquer it.
Yeah. So really, that's all. That's what we're talking about today. Is perspective, and how you see it affects how you feel, and it affects how you then move forward. So
Yeah, Paula, you've kind of reminded me of something that has been really helpful in my life, which is to recognize there's only two reasons to look into my past. One is to learn from it. What can I learn from my past? And the other is to celebrate the successes and the joys. And so your window, when you suggested looking out, when I look back into my past here and I see that I've always made it before, that's a good reason to look into the past, is to celebrate that success, that joy. And
especially if you've had 66 years of making it.
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
a success stories in that in that window of the past. You've got lots of success stories there.
Yeah. Good. So can we look at and help Alex with hers? Looking out the window of, will there ever be a break? I mean, do you feel that energy just with those words? Yeah. So Alex, could you share a little bit about looking out that window, and how that feels?
Yeah, I think it just feels really fatiguing because my work was preparing for this probably starting the end of January, and my work has already confirmed that through November of 2021, this is all I'll be doing. So I'm very grateful for work, for sure, in that aspect, and very relieved about that.
Okay, that's another window. Great.
Yeah. And then also it's just a little hard to imagine beyond personally experiencing it, professionally putting in 40 to 50 hours a week, and kind of supporting everybody else's needs. One of my main jobs is food security for the long term.
Yeah, so huge job.
Wow. Very heavy task. It's very similar to the medical people that seem to have to be working, extended hours, day after day.
Seeing death over and over again.
Tiring. experience of that. And you're
Right.
looking ahead, Alex, and realizing this is going to go on a long time, many, many months ahead for me on this.
Mhm.
And no wonder that's exhausting.
Yeah, and it's not just, it sounds like it's not just a guess or a story you're making up. This is, data is showing this is going to be the case. Yeah, you know, scientific proof. Yeah, yeah.
One thing I maybe put a little input on this long duration thing. I know that when I started hiking that long trail,
The Appalachian Trail, for those of you.
yes, the long trail. You know, that when I went the first 100 miles, I thought, oh my gosh, you know, 2,100 miles, and I was already exhausted. And then I got to the point, I think it was around, I'm going to say 700 miles in, where I stopped thinking about how much farther I had to go and just took one day at a time. Because otherwise it was too overwhelming.
It's daunting. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to break it down in little chunks that you can handle. You know, like they say, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah. So I love that, Paula. I think that's a great example. So Alex, how does that fit for you with looking out the window of, rather than the big picture window where you see this expansive amount of time, but looking out the window and seeing today? I can do this today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there are some, ways in which that's easier now than maybe it was before. I maybe didn't allow myself to take it one day at a time previously, because sometimes the world makes you think it needs to be differently. So,
Yeah.
I think there's more grace in that, and can extend to other areas of my life too, as we were talking about earlier. And for at least the short term, I'm working from home, so I'm able to kind of compartmentalize a little bit more, and then I just completely turn off all communication valves, I guess, for media after 4:30. So
to protect yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of nice. I don't look at anything on media. I don't get any news. I just nothing.
Beautiful. You know, what was coming to me, Alex, as you were describing that, is looking out the window of being totally present.
Yeah.
Being present with your baby in this moment, like really letting yourself be filled with that, or the special dinners you have with your husband, that I'm so present to this.
Yeah.
That is going on at the same time. And so notice wherever we put our focus on that big looming goal, the Appalachian Trail of food sourcing for you, versus right now.
Yeah.
Being present right now.
And this is not the 2,100 mile Appalachian Trail, but an idea that came on Facebook this morning from a former custodian at our church, was to take a day trip to one of the state parks that is close by, and just enjoy the day.
I'd like
here and now, or whatever. I think
exactly, and this is true. I mean, this is something we've been teaching for years about living our lives rather than living in the past of our regrets or into the worries of the future. Be present now. Joy is present now. It's only here now. It is being present with what's now. And I think in a lot of ways, the pandemic has caused people to be more present. and appreciate now, where we'd all be all psyched out in our heads and on media and constantly filling ourselves with stimulation. And boy, that's, you're only going to find joy now. That's the only place it is.
Yeah, one thing that your example has stimulated in me, and an idea too, and you've bumped up against it, several people have bumped up against it in talking about this, is that there's a window called self-care, which is partly what we've dealt with the last couple of weeks. And if the world out there is the prolonged experience of needing to deal with this situation, if that's the world out there, I can look out the window of despair or discouragement or whatever, or I could look out the window of self-care. How am I going to take care of myself on this journey? And so it's like, if I look out that window, I go, well, okay, well, I can see that I'm going to need to set some boundaries for myself around this. Just like I'm doing, not watching any TV or news or whatever after 4:30. That's a boundary. That's a self-care thing. And there may be other self-care things, like I may need to ask for help from my coworkers, from my family, from wherever. That's another self-care piece. So there's a self-care window that I'm looking out of with you, Alex, also around this issue.
Yeah, that kind of all ties together. One really nice window. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that, and again, this is just something that I've practiced a lot, that I latch on to, that helps me whenever there's a challenge, is I'm going to really grow from this. I am really going to learn something here. I am going to, come out the other side of this with a lot of new skills and insights and wisdom.
Wow. That's an exciting window, the window of growth possibility.
Yeah, and that one, ladies and gentlemen, is a universal window, no matter what's going on.
It's in everybody's house.
It's in everybody's house, in everybody's situation. Yeah, exactly. That's always there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, I see that we're wrapping up once again. It's the top of the hour. So, Kate, tell us what is coming up next week.
Okay, next week, it is enjoying the game of life. Allowing joy to dominate your life experiences. How's that sound?
Ooh, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, I just giggle when I see that.
Enjoying the game of life, allow joy to dominate your life experience. That's cool. I'm looking forward to that.
And we all have the power to do that and live that way. That's life mastery. That's a great example of life mastery.
Yeah, it includes the concept that we don't have to wait for joy, or we don't have to be lucky to get joy.
Right.
But when we're driving our own bus, we drive it through the land of joy. That is, we have something to do with creating it. In fact, we can allow it to dominate our lives. And how do we do that? How do we allow joy to dominate our lives? And that's going to be a fun discussion next week.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope you can all make it. We'll see. It's always fun. David and I were talking before this call, and I said, what I'm most excited about is I don't know who's going to be here. like we're, like I'm having a party and I invited everybody, and we'll see who shows up.
Yeah.
That's so I'm glad you were all here today, folks. It was pretty good for me.
Great. So, any closing comments about anything? Anything first that you're bursting to say or share with us before we close?
I want to say I appreciate everything. I appreciate all of this and it really helps me. So thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm
Thanks
so
for
glad,
being
Shirley.
here. I can say that I would guess that I am just as blessed with your presence as you are with ours.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for another great session.
Good. I'm so
Very
glad
good.
you're here.
Thanks for showing up. Absolutely.
Yes,
How
yes,
fun.
yeah, thanks to you all. And, I'll tell you, this would be not nearly as much fun if it was just me and you. So, you guys all help co-create that with who you are. And you're a big part of why these are good calls, if you think it's a good call.
Cool.
All right.
Well, all right then. Well, make it a good weekend and a good week, and we'll see you next Saturday, same time, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.